listening to TMZ Movie Crashers.
Welcome back to TMZ's Movie Crashers. I'm your host, Fabian Garcia from TMZ.
I'm your host, Paige Cotton from TooFab.
A lot of movie news this week.
A lot. We say that every week, but
we do, and there
seriously,
literally is.
It comes in waves.
It does, but this week was crazy. I mean, not only is the Cannes Film Festival underway, which we're going to talk about in just a second, but Pete Davidson's going to be in an A24 film. Disney has this new Pixar mock-up that they're talking about with Elements.
That looks cute.
Fred Ward died from Tremors fame. Like there's a lot of movie news, but we're going to talk about Cannes. It's currently underway. The film, I think the festival started maybe yesterday or something. It started yesterday.
For those people that don't know, Cannes Film Festival is one of the biggest film festivals.
It's probably the biggest.
Yeah, I feel like
Venice is up there too. You know,
Sundance,
Sundance is like
TIFF.
Ours, but like Cannes is kind of like the international film festival.
World mark, like where the market is like the world marketplace of film.
100%. And people have been shopping. Not only are films screened there, but movies are bought and sold there, and not just like finished movies, but like scripts are sold.
I didn't know anything about this.
Yeah, apparently,
really
apparently movies can be like the rights to a movie can be sold even before the movie has been shot or anything like that. Like people are looking for distribution rights, et cetera, et cetera. And that's where we're going to start today because not only are a ton of big stars shopping movies there, but there are some controversial stars. There are some
very controversial stars
who are kind of trying to make what I would maybe characterize as a bit of a comeback through the Cannes Film Festival.
It's like go big. It seems like.
And who we're talking about exactly here, a lot of them are Me Too fellas. People that have been kind of caught up in the Me Too movement / controversy over the past several years. That includes Kevin Spacey. That includes James Franco. That includes Roman Polanski, possibly. That one's kind of rumored.
That one's not confirmed,
Right.
Johnny Depp.
Johnny Depp, yes. Johnny Depp, who is
the man of the hour.
The man of the hour, whose trial is going on right now. And not only that, but Alec Baldwin as well is not necessarily Me Too, but he's very controversial as well.
We're going to get into that.
Yeah, but Kevin Spacey is shopping 2 movies.
Not one, but 2.
Yeah, one is called, I think it's called
1242 Gateway to the West.
Yes, and that's like a historical drama about Kangas Khan. It's super weird. I don't know what Kevin Spacey's white ass is doing in that movie. It's hella weird. But anyway,
deeply spiritual man. That's who he's playing.
Who maybe he plays the Westerner or the European.
I hope so.
Yeah, he probably plays the European Westerner in that movie. But that one's being shopped right now. That one's backed by Hungarian financing. So no American studios are touching that. It seems not yet.
Yeah.
But there's another one, I think it's called Peter 528.
Peter 58.
Peter 58, where he plays some kind of hitman. It's not, the plot is a little weird. He basically, the way they kind of peg it is that.
I was so confused when I was reading the plot. I was like, what is this about?
He's essentially the lead, and he rolls up in like some kind of like
black sedan.
He's like a mysterious figure, but like there's a photo being used, at least Deadline had, that they might have obtained, where you see him like with some kind of a sniper gun or something. That's what it looks like. Anyway, Kevin Spacey, back in 2 feature films. That's big news because he's been in like one other small independent Italian movie.
And he was also in that Billionaire Boys Club in like 2018 too.
Right, but that was before, I think that might have
right after.
He shot that before he was like canceled or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's a big deal that Kevin Spacey's trying to make a comeback. Kevin Spacey's an interesting case because I would argue that he was accused, out of all the Me Too men that have been accused, minus Harvey Weinstein, obviously, Kevin Spacey is up there as one of the guys who's been the most accused of like committing acts of sexual assault, et cetera, et cetera. He's denied all of them. And more importantly, which is I think is interesting too, as to whether this comeback's going to happen for him, he's kind of been cleared in a lot of it, both on the criminal side and on the civil side. Like he was cleared criminally in Massachusetts for that criminal case. The case was dropped. And then on the civil side, he was sued. Apparently, like witnesses were dying. I don't know if you caught all that, but Kevin Spacey is no longer being sued, as far as I'm aware, and he's no longer being criminally prosecuted anymore. So he is technically sort of in the clear. I mean, in the realm of public opinion, he's not He's not there. He's not good in that regard. But it's just interesting to see that he's coming back with 2 movies that he's trying to get. Movies that he's trying to get purchased. Like people are he's trying to get
Cannes market.
Yeah, he's trying to get suitors, et cetera. Johnny Depp, he's going to be in this. What's the title of that one? It's like
I'm not going to try to butcher it, but it's probably Jean Dubarry.
Yes.
It's a French period drama.
Yes, and he's playing kind of a big character. He's playing King Louis XV. And I'm not going to pretend like I know the difference between King Louis XV and King Louis I. I have no idea, but he's playing some kind of King Louis which is interesting because it's like, Johnny Depp, that seems like a fitting role for him. Some kind of extravagant sort of character. But this is going to be the first dramatic film that he's been in since, I think is it not Minamari, but he was in some kind of movie from 2020 where he played like this photojournalist, and it had something to do with like some Japanese mercury poisoning, etc. That was like an independent film. It didn't get picked up or released wide here in the U.S.
Yeah.
Now here he is once again at Cannes trying to get shopped as well for this King Louis movie. James Franco is trying to shop this movie where he plays some kind of like
rogue. Mace.
Yeah, he plays a cop, like it's like some corrupt cop, and the guy's like trying to instigate like race wars, et cetera, et cetera. James Franco, I would argue, is on the totem pole of Me Too stuff.
Yeah.
Is on the lower end of that because, as far as I know, he wasn't accused of like outright sexually assaulting anybody or like raping anybody. He was just accused of like using his position of like acting teacher and like in sex scenes and stuff.
Well, he was like, I'm not gonna get. We don't have to get into.
We don't have to get into the weeds of that, but I mean, just generally speaking,
but I was like,
generally speaking, James Franco wasn't accused of like outright pinning somebody down or doing something crazy like that. Still,
it's just being inappropriate with his theater class.
And yet here he is at Cannes once again trying to make a comeback. And then we got Alec Baldwin, and this one is the one that I think is perhaps the most controversial. Even though you could argue Kevin Spacey's more controversial big picture, or Johnny Depp might be more controversial big picture, Alec Baldwin is also trying to shop a movie right now with his producing partner. It's called False Awakenings.
They just recently created a production company together as well.
That's right. They launched a production company
called
and
Persona Entertainment.
This is I think maybe the first movie of theirs that they're trying to shop. Alec Baldwin stars in this movie called False Awakenings. He plays it's like some kind of psychiatrist. People have compared it to like a Sixth Sense sort of thing where like
I saw that, yeah.
Right. Anyway, so here's the thing with Alec Baldwin. That's the one that I'm going to take probably the most exception to be honest with you. And I think most people would agree that Alec Baldwin should not be, one, starring in a new movie this soon after the tragedy of him shooting and killing Helena Hutchins. It was an accident, obviously, but still, he did it. That happened like what? Like in October? Like that happened like 6 months ago.
I have a lot of thoughts, so you go first.
So it happened 6 months ago. Somebody died, and funny enough, at the time, Alec Baldwin was all torn up about it, and I'm not doubting that he is torn up about it, but at the time, there was an interview he did, like shortly after the tragedy, where he was in Delaware, he was being hounded by paparazzi.
His wife was there with him.
His wife was there with him, and he fielded their questions, and they asked him, like, do you think this movie is going to get made? And he said, no, I don't think this movie's going to get made. I think it's dead in the water, essentially. No pun intended. That's crude. Anyway, whatever. But then not only that, they also asked him at the time, are you going to be working on any other stuff at the time? And he sort of downplayed. He didn't. I went back and listened to the sound again, and he was like, he didn't outright deny, like, no, I'm not going to work in anything. He sort of said, that's not important right now. It's not important right now. Well, he wasn't as forthcoming as he should have been because he actually was working on something. He was working on this film, and here he is at Cannes trying to sell the rights to this film and get it picked up.
And his producing partner was also producer of one of the Rust producers as well.
Yes, this producing partner of his was working on Rust as well. And funny enough, speaking of Rust, the movie where Helena Hutchins died, the producing partner is quoted by THR as saying he thinks this film is going to get made.
He said, we're confident we'll be able to complete the movie. But then he backtracked the next day.
He did backpedal.
Seeming to like totally like, oh wait, never mind.
Right, because Hollywood Reporter published his comments as they were, and it sounded very sure of himself.
Like he said we're confident.
He said we're confident. We're gonna get back to Rust, and we're gonna finish Rust and complete that movie, which seems to contradict what Alec Baldwin said back in October to the paparazzi, saying, nope, Rust is done. We're not gonna. I think it's done or whatever. And then you're right. He backpedaled. The producing partner of Alec Baldwin backpedaled.
I was just being optimistic. That's not an actual plan.
Right. Don't quote me.
It's just hope. I'm like, is it though?
Anyway, this feels like a slap in the face on multiple fronts. One, on the Rust front, because here's the producing partner saying, we are going to finish this film. Many people feel like it's inappropriate for them to ever revisit that film ever again because
100%.
And frankly, it is.
I agree.
It is inappropriate. They should
not. Can you imagine being Helena's family right now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure her husband he's irate for a number of reasons, obviously. But to hear this, and not only that, but to see Alec Baldwin trying to shop a new film, already trying to turn the page.
And if he goes to Cannes,
we'll see if he shows up or not. But like the fact that his movie is being shopped and his name is on it, and Alec Baldwin's literally trying to turn the page. and kind of get on with his
Yeah,
life.
he even created a production company. Like, hello. Like,
yeah, he's trying to kind of move on, a la Travis Scott, kind of. They're sort of similar in a sense because people died in both instances. You know, Travis Scott
they're different but comparable.
They're comparable. Alec Baldwin was directly responsible for the death of Helena Hutchins. I just think it's disrespectful, frankly, to be trying to move on this soon, to already be kind of trying to shop your movie this soon. It feels callous. It feels shameless, really. You know what I mean? Or he should have shame. He's acting shameless, and it's like I said, out of all the guys we listed, Kevin Spacey, James Franco, Johnny Depp, Roman Polanski's even potentially shopping a movie. That's the rumor too.
Yeah.
Out of all those guys, and all these people have allegedly done terrible things, I'm cringing and perhaps a little more angry about Alec Baldwin the most. Like, dog, like, sit it out for a year. Like, come on. Like, you literally killed a woman 6 months ago. What are you doing?
Yes. And something that really seemed like almost like confusing to me. I was like, I don't understand this. Because obviously Alec was saying, you know, he kind of, when he was asked about, you're going to go back to acting and do more projects, he kind of, like you said, like kind of beat around the bush and really answer.
Sort of downplayed it, yeah.
Downplayed it. But Hilaria, so we write a lot about Hilaria at TooFab specifically. You guys do too, but we write a lot about her. And I remember she wrote, it was like an interview with the New York Post, and it was like in late October, you know, when they were doing so many interviews and things like that.
Right.
And she literally said she was so worried that Alec Baldwin was going to have PTSD because she was so concerned about the repercussions in his mental health. And so
anyway, go on.
I'm just going to quick note.
Yeah.
I have struggled with mental health issues. It's Mental Health Awareness Month. I am not one to judge someone's mental health.
Right.
However, she said, even was asked, do you think Alec will return to acting? And she goes, I'm not sure. Like, he's just really needs to work on his mental health right now.
Sounds pretty coy.
So she says that. She makes it seem like he's so tore up and can barely, like, almost, I mean, she didn't say he couldn't leave the house, but she seems like it's just like, oh, he might even go back to work. Like, he's just so shaken up. And then cut to, so a few months later, now he's, you know, has a new production company. He's shopping a film at Cannes, like the biggest film festival. It's just like,
he's doing a lot.
That does not add up. Even if, like, again, I don't know.
By the way, I don't mean to interrupt you, but real quick, we should make a note of this. He has not been cleared in the criminal investigation.
The investigation's still going.
And he's been sued for wrongful death. So he's in the middle of a lawsuit. He hasn't been cleared in this investigation. But go on, finish your point. Like,
the last point what I was going to say was, I mean, I don't know much about PTSD specifically, but if he did have PTSD, I feel like this just seems awfully fast.
It does.
Like, to be like, oh, I'm better now.
I'm good.
Sorry
Who wants to buy my movie?
Yeah, sorry the woman died, but let's just get the movie going now.
Who wants to buy my new movie? Hey, step right up.
And the other thing is, like, when it comes to all of these stars together, I mean, Alec Baldwin, I agree, is like
perhaps the most egregious.
It's not a Me Too thing, but I think there's like several factors at play when it comes to them wanting to become uncanceled or like come back into Hollywood.
Right.
Obviously, the main thing is it depends on like what they were accused of or convicted of or, you know, found innocent. They weren't found guilty of.
Right.
Other thing is how they react publicly. Like, do they deny? Do they take responsibility? Are they holding themselves accountable? I think that's a big thing. And another thing that's a huge thing is the court of public opinion.
Right.
Even if they get this movie bought, who says people are going to want to go see it?
That's right. And
for a lot of the actors, and including Alec Baldwin, it's like, well, I don't want to see a movie that James Franco's in. I don't want to see a movie that Alec Baldwin's in, that he's making when this investigation's not even concluded.
You're right. Like,
even you want people to actually see your film.
Correct. Even if all of these guys get their movies purchased and somebody buys the rights to distribute it, et cetera, or even let's just even assume, because honestly, I think whoever buys these, I think these films will be bought. But they're not going to be bought by any major studio. They're not going to be bought by mainstream companies or huge studios.
I would be
or anything.
shocked.
They're going to be picked up by like independent production companies or distributing companies or even foreign companies. You know what I mean? That might get the rights. But even let's just assume, you know, Warner picks up the rights to one of these movies. Like Warner wants to distribute it, massive release. You're right. Even if somebody picks up the rights and wants to sell it and screen it on your behalf or whatever, that doesn't mean people are going to come and see it. You know what I mean? So I agree that, you know, depending on like how they might have reacted. So let me ask you this. With all that said, who do you think has the best chance at getting, let's just assume all their movies get purchased. Who has the best chance of maybe kind of sort of coming back, if you will? Who has the most grace or the most goodwill on their side to potentially cross over, get back into the mainstream, back into the public's good graces again? Who do you think has the best shot? You know, I have an interesting answer, but I want to hear yours first.
I need a moment to think.
All right,
you
so
go first.
let me go first then. So
the wheels are churning.
So
but
this one,
go ahead.
this is a bit of a controversial take, but I'll stick by it. So I actually think, out of all these guys, maybe Johnny Depp has the best shot, because
what
I mean,
I was
that's
kind of
sort
leaning
of the,
toward.
Let's exclude Johnny Depp,
Yeah,
because
it's too.
everybody loves him. He clearly has a fan base.
I'm going to bring that up later too. So let's
so
take him out.
Johnny Depp out,
And Polanski,
I suppose too. I mean, out of, let's just say, Alec Baldwin, James Franco, and Kevin Spacey, even though James Franco has maybe committed the less sin out of all of them potentially, I would argue that Kevin Spacey has a better chance at maybe getting the movie actually purchased and for it to actually be seen and received well. You know what I mean? Because look, to be real, like, yes, Kevin Spacey has been accused of some horrific stuff. You know what I mean?
Disgusting, like children involved.
Disgusting stuff, for sure. With that said, I'm somebody who can separate the art from the artist, and Kevin Spacey is a fantastic artist. He is a fantastic actor, has been for decades, okay? Like, Kevin Spacey is good. He's a great actor. And I think, like, these movies, especially the one where he playing to plays like the hitman sort of or whatever, the Mongolian one, I don't know, that already sounds weird. I'm not really interested in that.
One sounds bizarre.
But the other one sounds kind of interesting. And knowing Kevin Spacey and his acting chops, and if he has a good script, I mean, I've seen a lot of his movies. I don't know. Like, if the movie's good, the movie's good. And if he acts well, he acts well. Like, the real world, his real world and real life have nothing to do with that. I can compartmentalize. I can separate the two. And I think because Kevin Spacey is such a good actor and can really put on a good performance, I feel like his movie would probably have a better chance at actually being received by the public and actually getting, like, good reviews, et cetera. I don't know. That's kind of my take on that.
Okay, so I agree that I think out of those options that we said, I think it would be Spacey. However, I think it's too soon.
For Spacey?
Yeah, it was like
been
2017,
years.
2018.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, like, again, I kind of said this already. He's been cleared both criminally and civilly already.
But do you think, like, regular people, like, are going to go, like, I mean, okay, let me backtrack. You say you're able to separate the art from the artist.
Yes.
Not everyone can do that.
Right.
It's not, I mean, it's difficult, especially if someone, especially for Spacey specifically, like the LGBTQ community, it'd probably be really hard for some of them because of, like, the allegations. I mean, yes, he was cleared, but I feel like
Kevin Spacey himself is part of the LGBT community, right? Like,
I think
he's gay for sure.
But I don't think I forgot exactly, but I'm pretty sure, like, he never was. I don't think he was out. I think it was then
he came out trying to kind of explain it away.
Yes,
after he is part of the LGBT community. Now. So I mean, yeah, like I understand your point.
Do you get what I mean?
I understand your point. Yeah, because of Anthony Rapp and everything. Yeah, I get it. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm wrong, but I just feel like, and whether people actually flock to go see it or not, probably not. But, like, as far as, like,
out of the group,
as far as the quality of the movie, I think Kevin Spacey can, even at this point, can still turn out a quality movie.
Like
he's
whatever. He's whatever.
Right, he's hit or miss.
Yeah.
And Alec Baldwin, again, I mean, I feel bad because I feel like I'm kind of shitting on Alec Baldwin, but I'm more angry about Alec Baldwin because
there is too many inconsistencies. And when it comes to Baldwin, like, he seems one thing, like, he seems like he's so, like, torn up about it, and then it's like, oh, I'm fine. It's like it doesn't add up, and there's probably more to the story. And this investigation, I don't know how long they usually last. This seems like it's taking a long time.
It's taking a long time, and we'll see what comes of it. Like I said, he hasn't been cleared. But one other point I wanted to make about Alec Baldwin, we actually spoke to one of the actors on the film Rust. His name is Ian, and he doesn't think that Rust should continue without Helena Hutchins. And Alec Baldwin himself said that he shouldn't continue. But let's actually hear Ian. He talks about Helena. Let's hear what he had to say.
I think that's up to Joel and the rest of the creators. I really feel like Helena Hutchins was, a huge part of this production. She was a lot of the vision behind the scenes that they were shooting, and she and Joel were, magnificent together. They worked like, two hands from the same body.
So there's Ian right there explaining why it would be inappropriate or just feel wrong to move on and complete this movie without her, because he's right. She was the cinematographer. It has her film prints all over it, her camera shots, her angles, her lighting,
And this
everything.
tragedy is on there as well.
Yeah, like it's just one of those dark clouds that you'll never be able to get rid of. So in my opinion, it's one of those things that you should certainly sweep under the rug, not under the rug, but just kind of put it in the shelf, move on, even though kind of I kind of maybe hold back on that a little
like
bit.
her legacy.
Well, because they
yeah.
finished The Crow, which is like a similar sort of thing that happened. They literally finished The Crow. So I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I suppose you could, but like all things considered, especially maybe the climate more than anything, because the 90s was a different time.
Totally.
The climate now, I think you should move on. But the fact that Alec Baldwin's he already has moved on apparently. So whatever. We'll leave him be and see if anybody wants to buy his movie. Anyway, that's a good chance for us to move on. Speaking of moving on, yes, casting the light.
Yeah, so our casting light's a little different this week.
Yes.
So we're talking about casting in the sense of like a verb, I guess, and when it comes to what the Star Wars future will be.
Yes.
So earlier this week, Vanity Fair had this epic Star Wars cover story and feature. It was incredible. The photos. It was awesome. There were so many great tidbits about the past, present, and future of the franchise. So many great secrets in there. Highly recommend checking that out. So one of the several takeaways and trending topics from the feature was Lucasfilm head and producer Kathleen Kennedy. She made a comment.
She's the president, I think. Of
yeah,
Lucasfilm,
that's what I meant by
right?
head. Yeah, she's head and a producer. She's a producer on all the films, but she's president.
She's the prez.
And for those people that don't know, Lucasfilm was owned by Disney. I feel like most people know that, but just in case people don't know that, it is.
Yep.
So she made a comment about Solo: A Star Wars Story, which is the 2018 Han Solo standalone film.
Yes.
Which starred Alden Ehrenreich as a young Han Solo. Of course, the character was originated by Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
And then Donald Glover played a young Lando Calrissian, which the role was originated by Billy D. Williams.
Yes.
And she basically said, because of Solo: A Star Wars Story, which was considered a bomb when it comes to Star Wars films.
I mean, it was the least. It performed the least well out of all the Star Wars movies.
Did.
So
it did.
it technically was a bomb.
It was a bomb.
In the world of Star Wars.
That's what I meant. In the world of Star Wars, it was a bomb, but in other films, it probably wouldn't be.
Yeah, general box office, it did fine.
It was okay, yeah. So she said that because of that film and how it performed in the box office in relation to other Star Wars films.
And she also kind of made it seem like not only how it performed, but how it was like perceived by the fan base.
Which is, we'll get to that. Didn't really
continue,
make sense.
please. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it's fine. So she said that because of that film, Lucasfilm is no longer should and will not recast original characters with new actors.
Right. Which is what they did there. This was like a bit of a prequel kind of thing to Han's story, if you will. And obviously Harrison Ford is super old, and you know, like you can't. Billy Crystal's super old. Like, you can't get these guys to play the same character, so they recast them as the young versions of themselves with Donald Glover and Alden, and she's basically. And by the way, the article, the Vanity Fair article that you're citing, it starts off with this. It starts off talking about the Solo movie and saying, yeah, because Solo was so crappy, essentially, we're never going to cast our original characters with new actors. And it pissed off fans.
So she said, her exact quote is short. We'll say it real quick. So she said, there should be moments along the way when you learn things. Now it does seem so abundantly clear that we can't do that.
Yes.
So fans were pissed, and they interpreted, as I would interpret it, that she was going after the actors specifically.
And honestly, it does come off as a bit of a shot because the article doesn't offer more context.
It doesn't.
There's no more of a quote from her.
No.
Because if part of her quote would have been like, oh, by the way, the actors were great, but but she didn't do that, and they didn't quote her saying that, and the article didn't elaborate more. So it totally seems like she was throwing the new actors under the bus, and people were fiercely defending them.
People were so mad because I saw the film when it came out. I haven't seen it since. It was a little blurry on how much I remember of it, but I enjoyed it. Was it my favorite Star Wars film? No. Right. The actors were great. I thought they were the best part of it. I haven't
seen the movie, so I can't really weigh in myself.
I think that Alden had the good, like, Harrison Ford kind of Han Solo vibe, kind of
Solo-esque about him?
I felt that the essence was there. I'm not like, I mean, I'll mention this later. I'm like kind of like a bandwagon Star Wars fan, so I'm not like a diehard. But I feel like if the diehard fans were okay with it, then that's a stamp of approval that you need.
Yeah, and like we say, I mean, people were defending them on Twitter. They were saying that the actors
were going after Kathleen Kennedy.
They were going after Kathleen Kennedy, and they were basically saying, why are you blaming the actors? There was a
That
lot.
wasn't the
There were
issue.
a lot of issues with that movie. Like the script was kind of not great,
The
and
directors,
the directors got swapped around.
It was two
yes.
directors. Then Ron Howard came over.
The movie was getting
took over.
delayed constantly.
Yes, and the big
reshoots.
Reshoots. And one of the big things that I didn't know is that it was released a month before Avengers: Infinity War.
I thought was it before or after? It was.
I think it was before, and then or maybe it was after. It was within a month,
right?
And then it was on the same day as Deadpool 2.
Yeah. So
I'm like, what do you expect, box office?
And by the way, Deadpool belongs to Disney as well.
Yes.
So it's like, what are you guys doing? So yes,
you literally set it up for
to fail.
The box office.
100%.
So why are you blaming the actors?
And that's the thing. Maybe Kathleen Kennedy didn't mean to throw like the actors under the bus, but she sort of did by just making this quote without any more context. But here's the thing: even despite all that, and even if they were great, I'm sure they were great. I'm actually going to agree with her and say that they should not recast new actors with their original characters. And I think that's it, because these characters like Luke Skywalker or like Obi-Wan Kenobi, as we're seeing with the new show.
Yeah.
You
technically he's a younger actor.
You're right. He's a younger actor. So he can still get away with it. But
it
like
was in the prequel series.
But like, yes, but like even with Solo, like I'm not gonna lie, like when they first announced Solo was happening, and like I kind of saw like the new actor, I was like, yeah, no, you're not Harrison Ford-esque at all.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe in the film he channeled it
been a
better.
while, but from what I remember,
Like, I mean, but from the trailer I saw and from like the stills that I saw, I was like, yeah, no, this doesn't work.
So let me ask you this. Let me give an example. So in The Mandalorian, obviously huge fan. In The Mandalorian, in this, I think it was end of season 2. They have a young Luke Skywalker, but it's Mark Hamill, but it's like a younger kid, but it's like his face CGI.
Yeah, they have a young person's body, but they CGI'd Mark Hamill's face to make him younger.
So you think that's better than having a younger actor do that?
For cameos, that's fine. For cameo, because that was a cameo role where he came in and like.
Well, yeah, and he's like in the Book of Boba Fett too, but I think I haven't watched that yet. But
okay.
But you think that's.
It depends. If it's limited, it's fine. Like that was a limited. That was like just a one-off scene. That was fine. But like if they're going to do extended scenes, no, that's not going to work for me.
So you think it's better to have the CGI like what they did?
Yeah, like I said, for cameo stuff like that, it's fine. But if you're planning to bring Luke Skywalker back into the storyline again and to feature him heavily as like a main character again, you got to go in a different direction. You have to find a new storyline, and that's what they're trying to do here with Star Wars. They're trying to like map out the next 5 movies or 6 movies.
Rian Johnson, all these films and projects and shows.
They're laying out the map right now, but like, and they're trying to get away from the Skywalker storyline in general because they know all these stars are super old and or deceased, like Carrie Fisher, you know? So I think that's what Kathleen Kennedy was kind of trying to say. Like, we're trying to kind of like leave the Skywalker legacy behind because frankly, we know those actors are old. And I think what she sort of meant was that when we tried doing the Solo film and kind of like recapturing those characters again, maybe it didn't work so well because I would argue, and I think she's right, if this is in fact what she's saying, those characters are so iconic to have someone else do it again. It feels like a cheap version. It feels like what's the word I'm looking for? Like it's just
like
it feels like a knockoff. Yes,
Yeah.
it feels like derivative. It's not the original. And as much as you might try to capture the original, it's just not going to work.
See, I was just, I agree with you because I first was like, I'm like, wait, I'm confused. I mean, I was like, at first I was like, oh, I'm against what he's saying, but now I do get what you're saying because I was thinking of it. I was coming from the point of view of like appearances in one sense because I'm like, an actor can act, they can like somewhat get the essence, but because I was thinking of the Luke Skywalker thing in The Mandalorian. I'm like, that CGI was terrible. Why didn't they get someone like Sebastian Stan, who they've talked about in interviews how he's like looks so much like Mark Hamill, and they like talked about that. Like he would be perfect. People have said that.
Right.
They put side by sides. Anyways, however, now I think about it, and I love Sebastian Stan. But if they did another Luke Skywalker film, which again they shouldn't, and it doesn't seem like they would.
No, they definitely don't need to go back.
They don't need it.
No.
I would probably be a little like.
You'd be turned off by it a little bit, right?
So now you can
because
I'm like turning the tables here.
You would be the whole time instead of just like watching it and absorbing the story and absorbing what's happening, you would just be like, you don't really look like Luke Skywalker. You'd be obsessed with that the entire time. So I think that's kind of what she's getting at. And by the way, she is following Star Wars at large is following through on this principle of theirs because they got Hayden Christensen back as Darth Vader for the new Obi-Wan show, which is it premiering this week, I think, or
next week?
Next week. Okay, so yeah, Hayden is back. that's a big deal. And, you know, Ewan McGregor is back, like, as Obi-Wan. And I get it. You're right. They're younger actors. So
but it's different.
It's different, so they can get away with it. But yeah, there they are. These guys, they're bringing them back. They're not recasting anybody. You know what I mean? They could have recast if they wanted to, but they didn't.
That'd be terrible.
And by the way, speaking of Hayden, we have some sound of him talking about coming back to the Darth Vader role in general and what that means for him. Reprising his role. And let's just hear what he had to say about it real quick.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's part of what's really sort of interesting about coming back now after all of this time. Is just sort of being in a different place in my life and having sort of a new perspective on my work, and coming back to a character that I've already played before. After all this time, it's just like an interesting exercise in my craft.
So there's Hayden. He did that interview with The Cutaway with William Mullally, who's like an independent film journalist, etc. But yeah, he's basically saying it's interesting to come back and play this character after being away for so long. I'm at a different point in my life as an actor. Darth Vader's obviously at a different point in his life within the world of Star Wars, because this is after.
It's 10 years after Revenge of the Sith.
Yes, and this is like before A New Hope, so it's kind of like in that between period when Darth Vader's kind of going around hunting Jedi and stuff,
and looking for Obi-Wan.
So I'm excited about that. But yeah, I mean, to kind of get back to Kathleen's point here, I mean, I feel like what people are angry about is the fact that she essentially, it sounded like she was sort of saying Donald Glover sucked and Alden sucked.
She shouldn't have brought up the example. I feel like she just should have said.
She should have said it generally.
Yes.
Because you're right, because her kind of specifically honing in on Solo, it felt like she was throwing all the actors in that whole movie under the bus and saying that was a disaster. We're never going to do that piece of shit again. That's kind of how it came off.
And it's still trending, and that came out like 2 days ago. It's still trending
Kathleen
on Twitter.
Kennedy is still trending on Twitter. But I don't think she meant it to be like as a pure shot.
It came out wrong.
It came out wrong, and the article didn't do a good job of kind of hedging it for her. But it is what it is.
It happens.
Anyway, we'll go ahead and move on from that, and we will get to the Hollywood hoedown. Oh, shit. Here we go.
Here we go.
And this one is about, speaking of Johnny Depp, we're going to once again talk about Amber Heard. We're going to do it quickly, but we kind of have to revisit this because the Aquaman thing,
which we brought up,
which we talked about like a couple weeks ago, was once again addressed by Amber Heard. And not just addressed, but confirmed by Amber Heard. Remember, the initial report, or the rumor, if you will, was that in the latest cut of Aquaman 2, Amber Heard reportedly has less than 10 minutes of screen time. Now, as to where that is in the movie and how they use it, who knows? It could be spaced or just in whatever throughout. But in any case, she confirmed on the witness stand, I think yesterday or maybe a couple days ago, that yes, her role has been significantly reduced. And she basically said that the producers of this movie did not want me in this film. We actually have some sound of Amber talking about it. Let's listen to that.
I was given a script and then given new versions of the script that had taken away scenes that had action in it, that depicted my character and another character, without giving any spoilers away. You know, they're two characters fighting with one another, and they basically took a bunch out of my role. They just removed a bunch out.
So there's Amber literally confirming that, yes, she got one script, she got another version of a script, less screen time, less fight sequences. And she attributes this to what's been going on between her and Johnny Depp. So even though people say Johnny Depp's career has been tanked because of all these Amber Heard allegations, here she is on the witness stand saying, my career has also sort of been tanked because Aquaman was the biggest thing that had come her way in her entire career. And now it seems like even in the sequel, which she is featured in, that has been stripped away significantly. Yeah. Interestingly enough, what she's saying on the witness stand here about the producers didn't really want me in that. She claimed that she had to like fight to stay in the movie.
She said that.
She did say that. You're right. And that directly contradicts what Peter Safran said last summer. Peter Safran's one of the big producers on Aquaman 2. And last July, he was on this podcast with Deadline. I think it's called Hero Nation or something like that.
Hero Nation, that was it.
Hero Nation with Deadline. And they were asking him, hey, because all this Justice for Johnny stuff was even it was going on back then at the time, right? And they were aware of it. And they said, hey, Peter, in light of all these fears Johnny Depp defenders calling for Amber Heard to be replaced in the film, there's a petition going around, et cetera.
Still going up.
It's still going at this point. They asked Peter, hey, what do you make of all this? Are you guys letting it affect your decisions? Peter said no. In fact, let's actually listen to him because he says it a lot better than I can.
I think you got to do what you feel is best for the movie. And, we felt that if it's James Wan and Jason Momoa, it should be Amber Heard. And that's really what it was. So, I mean, listen, one is not unaware of what's going on in the, Twitterverse. But that doesn't mean that you have to react to it or take it as gospel or accede to their wishes. You have to do what you feel is right for the film. And that's really where we landed on it.
So there's Peter basically saying, we drowned out the noise. We weren't listening to the Johnny Depp defenders. We're not gonna do essentially heed to their demands of replacing Amber. We're gonna stick by Amber. Amber Heard is our girl. She's our Mira. We're gonna have her in the film.
Definitely not what she said.
No, it's not what she said at all. And in fact, I'm sure when the movie comes out, it's going to confirm her account. It's probably going to confirm her account in the sense that Amber Heard is barely going to be in that movie, it sounds like. She's going to have a very minimal role, just big picture. So Peter Safran, I'm not saying he's lying per se, but I would argue that he probably wasn't being as forthright, or maybe at the time he was speaking on the current condition of things.
I was
last
going to say
summer,
that. I wonder if he'd say the same thing now.
Probably would not say the same thing now because that was last July. So things have developed and changed. It's been almost a year since he had that interview. But yeah, I would argue even then he might have been bullshitting a little bit. He'd be like, "Oh no, Amber Heard's our girl." No. Even then, we feel like you probably might have been like, "You guys, let's kind of tuck Amber away a little bit. Let's kind of downplay her." So anyway, Amber Heard career.
We're gonna have more coming for that.
That'll be. We'll see what that trial yields because it's probably gonna end up being 0-0, I imagine, because there's just been so many allegations on both sides. But
it's just insane.
That's a perfect word for it. It's nuts.
I have no other words to describe it.
No, it's nutty. Anyway, we'll move on to our next segment, which is What'd You See, What'd You Think? And this one I'm very excited about.
Me too.
What did you see this weekend?
Okay.
And you go first.
Okay, are you sure?
Yes.
Okay. So the past weekend, I watched several movies. I didn't see any in theaters. They were all, one of them was new, but the other ones were older. So first thing I watched was that Rebel Wilson Netflix comedy, Senior Year.
The Netflix one, yes?
The Netflix one.
Okay.
It was,
Is this Skinny Rebel? I'm sorry, that's super mean. I shouldn't say that. That's too mean. Damn it. All right, whatever.
It's okay,
whatever.
because I was going to point that out. So this is the first film that I've seen her in since she lost weight.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, should I even mention? Because I first was like, oh, should I mention that on the podcast? But it is an observation, and she was open about it.
And
so
she's been very proud to have lost weight.
She is.
Right. And she looks great, by the way.
I think she's beautiful before, beautiful now.
Well, anyway, go on.
Oh my God.
I'm just whatever, but go on. She looks great now.
But honestly, I feel like some of her humor, in Pitch Perfect, had to do when she was called Fat Amy, Pitch Perfect.
Yes.
But so that was a lot of her humor had to do with
Fat
how
girl
she
humor.
looked. Exactly. Right. So I was interested to see her in a different setting.
Mm-hmm.
And
how was it?
She was the best part of the movie.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was she playing an Aussie in the movie or no? Was she playing an American?
She was playing an Aussie.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen her play an American. I think about it. In Bridesmaids, was her character American?
No. I think that one had an accent
Aussie
as well.
Too?
Yeah.
Yeah, so she plays an Aussie. So it's really the whole plot's cute, and it's basically she goes this young girl is a teenager. She's on the cheer team. She becomes popular, and then she does this cheer stunt. And she's in a coma for 30 years and wakes up, and she's in her 20 years. She wakes up and she's in her 30-year-old woman.
Oh, so is it 13 going on 30, sort of?
Kind of, but so she goes back to school. She doesn't turn back to her younger self or anything. 30 going 30.
Right.
But yeah, so now she's
or Freaky Friday almost.
Kind of like that. So so now she goes back to school and everything's different because when she was younger, it was all about popularity and this, and then when she goes to school,
jocks
it's all about inclusivity and so it's funny. I thought it was that part. The whole plot was interesting. The writing was kind of corny.
Sure.
The movie was pretty cheesy, but it was what I was expecting, and Rebel was funny. It was cute. It was what I wanted for what I expected out of the film. And
that sounds fun.
Other thing I watched was one of my comfort films. If I think that everyone should have a good library of comfort films for whatever. So I watched Crazy Rich Asians, which I've seen a bazillion times. One of my faves. But the main thing that I watched was I rewatched the Star Wars prequels, which we kind of touched upon a little bit. I watched Episode 1, Phantom Menace. I watched Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith to
By the way,
prepare for Obi-Wan.
The
Yeah.
prequels they don't get nearly enough love, in my opinion.
Okay,
I mean,
so-
not to go off too much on a tangent, but like people like hate on the prequels a lot.
So it's very
especially
interesting.
Episode 1's amazing. Jar Jar Binks is amazing. Like, why do
Okay.
people hate this guy so much? I don't understand this.
So-
He's a fine character. He's funny.
So
Anyway, go on.
I was going to mention that. So, well, actually, I still think the first one's kind of meh.
Okay.
It's like too political and like kind of confusing.
Yeah, you're right.
For like
it's
compared
dry.
to the other
It's
ones.
relatively dry,
Yeah.
for sure.
So, and I should have mentioned that I'm like a bandwagon Star Wars fan. I think I started watching it like when The Force Awakens came out, and then I started watching all of them.
I did the same thing.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
I started getting into them, and then obsessed with The Mandalorian,
Right,
obviously,
right.
as my shirt shows. But so I rewatched the prequel series again. I've seen them a few times. I still thought the first one was kind of meh, like I mentioned.
Uh-huh.
Second one's more interesting. Love the love story, and it really sets up Episode 3. By far the best is Revenge of the Sith.
For sure.
I enjoy that movie. It's dramatic. It's
It is.
action-packed. It's a bit of a tragedy. You know Anakin's gonna go bad, and you just like
Right.
want it not to happen, but you
Right.
know it's
and
gonna
it keeps
happen.
on happening.
And the
I-
part when that always gets me, sorry, the part that always gets me, and like I was bringing this up to one of my coworkers, is the part when like when he kills the kids, the young Jedi.
Oh my god.
That part is just
It's
the little boy
dark.
is like, Mr. Scott, what are we gonna do? And then he's like, that's a terrible lightsaber noise, but yeah, and then he just kills all the kids.
I can't believe we're laughing so much about kids being killed.
No,
but yes,
I know.
it's
But that
dark.
part's like dark.
It's hella
and, like,
dark.
I'm like, how is this PG-13? Kids are getting murdered.
Right. That's when he goes full Vader at that point.
that's like when it
essentially.
starts to get that point, and then
He's
that's
already
when
like evil. At
that's
that,
where like
yeah.
Padme's like killing younglings. Like, what are you doing? Like, you're
Right,
breaking my
right.
heart. Yeah. So and you brought this up. So the prequels, even though I didn't watch them when they first came out, because it was like
You didn't see them when they first came out. When
that
you were
wasn't
a
like
kid?
no, I didn't watch them when I was a kid.
I watched them when I was a
My
kid.
like neighbor boys.
because those were like big like
there was like
kid movies at the
2000s,
time.
yeah, but
and I was a kid.
I didn't,
so
so I didn't watch them when I was younger. I didn't
interesting.
I didn't start watching them until like Force Awakens came out. I
Right,
watched
right,
all of
right,
them,
right.
the original prequel, the regional series, the prequel series, and the sequels.
right.
So I was one I had heard about, especially now, how Hayden Christensen and so
Mm-hmm.
many of the films in general got so much like people hated them, like they were just ripped in. Like the Rotten Tomatoes scores like weren't that bad. I was expecting
Right.
it to be like 3% because people like act like they were these horrible films.
Right.
Yeah, the CGI was corny, but for the time it was great.
It was.
It was cool, and honestly, I think his character, I think he's great.
I think so too. I mean, look, the Star Wars fan base, they're an interesting bunch, just to say the least. They're very
I mean, just look at what happened.
They're loyalists.
Just
Some of
look
them
what
are purists. Like, I mean,
Yes.
there's a lot of that type of like it's like there's different subcultures of Star Wars and stuff like that. But
I mean, you
yeah,
think of like what happened to like John Boyega, Kelly Marie Tran, like
Yes.
even Daisy Ridley was like off social media for a long time.
They can be ruthless.
Yes, and
for
so
sure.
I am so happy that Hayden Christensen, despite all of the heat and the crap he got in the past,
Right.
is being welcomed with open arms. And I even saw this
Yes.
TikTok of this guy, and it was so funny, and all the comments were saying the same thing. This guy was like, if I see anyone giving any mean comments to this man, right, any of these men right here, and then people in the comments like, throw hands, like, we're gonna be
Yeah,
pissed.
by
like,
the way, what has Hayden Christensen been doing the past like decade?
it's been a while.
I
He
don't know.
said, I looked at his IMDb, he's
Uh-huh.
been doing like small
Small
films,
film.
kind of like B
well, I'm
films.
glad he's back and
Yeah.
getting work. Like, good for him. And
I'm
and,
looking forward to
hopefully we can get justice for Jar Jar Binks too. Let's get Jar Jar
Yes.
Binks. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. People hate Jar Jar Binks.
I
but
mean, not
I
a big
like
fan, but-
Jar Jar Binks. He's funny.
So what did you watch?
Oh man, what did I watch? I watched a lot of movies too. So I did.
we had
see-
a lazy weekend, apparently.
It was a lazy weekend, but Firestarter came out this past week, and the new rebooted Firestarter came out. I just saw it last night. I didn't go to the theaters to go watch it because it was streaming on Peacock. I was like, screw it, I'll just stream this on Peacock. It got terrible Rotten Tomato scores.
That's why I was like,
everybody, including audiences, have said it was terrible. I'm here to tell you it was not that bad.
Really?
It was not that bad. Zac Efron did pretty damn well.
I think Zac Efron's so underrated. I just want to
Zac
point that
Efron
out.
is underrated
Sorry,
for
continue.
sure. He kind of has the high school musical pretty boy thing
Yeah.
with him forever, but he was pretty solid.
Yeah.
The movie itself was okay. I didn't really like the way it ended. It ended very abruptly. The movie
I
was like
hate-
literally a clean 90 minutes. It's like, God damn, that's short.
Especially nowadays.
Yes, and I
Movies are,
also
like,
I also
over
went
2 hours.
ahead because I knew I was going to watch Firestarter at some point this week. This weekend I watched the original Firestarter with
Drew Barrymore.
Yes, Drew Barrymore. Of course. Why am I forgetting her name? Yes, with Drew Barrymore when she was very young. I like the original a lot better. I mean, first of all, the kid in the original is like a little kid, so that's what makes it even more terrifying. That she's like, because in the new one, she's like a 10-year-old, 11-year-old almost. It's
So
like
how old was Drew Barrymore? Like,
Drew Barrymore was like 6,
Oh,
maybe
like, really young. Okay.
6, maybe 7 in the original.
Yeah.
And in the original, It kind of starts off with her and her dad, because they have like telekinetic powers.
Yeah.
She has stronger powers because she can make and control fire as well. But in the original, it starts off with them on the run, and it's like you're right in the thick of it.
Oh, wow.
And then they get captured, and they start doing tests, and then in the new one, I appreciated the new one because they wanted to lay more of a backstory. It's like, okay, how did they get here? Because in the first one, like I said, they throw you right into the plot. They're already on the run. They're being hounded by federal agents who want to like capture them, etc. And you go from there. But in the original, this new one, they kind of introduce the mother, because in the first one, the mother's dead, and you learn that it's because she killed her mom by accident.
Oh my God.
It's super dark. It's a very dark movie. And
talking about killing kids, and
right?
killing
Speaking
moms.
of, yeah, exactly. Dark day.
Yeah.
But for the new one, they introduce the mom. You kind of see more of her story. You see more of the backstory of kind of how all this came to be. And then from there, it kind of follows the same sorts of beats. They get captured. They go to this lab. But then the new one, they really rushed the ending about like the capture, and the girl comes, essentially because in both movies, she ends up torching the entire place. She like destroys the buildings. She kills all the agents. Her dad in both movies ends up dying. And in the original, the dad tells her in pretty dramatic terms, he's like, "It's over. You got to run. Don't let him take you. I know I said don't hurt any people, but break that rule, baby. Break that rule. Kill everybody." So in the original and in the new one, she does exactly that. She kills everybody. But in the new one, they really they glossed over. Like she does all the kills really quickly, and then it's over, and that's it. And then she kind of gets rescued by some guy at the end. It doesn't make any sense because in the original it's different. But in the old one, the old one felt more. It was better paced, and they took their time showing the destruction. Because like when you're gonna do a movie about fire and blowing shit up, you want to see it, right? You want to like. You want to draw it out.
That the newer one would
the newer one
with the special effects.
With the newer one does have better effects. Actually, I'm going to take that back. It doesn't have better effects because in the old one it had practical effects, and not only that, but they drew out the practical effects. They drew those scenes out. They were longer. They sulked in those scenes, those explosive scenes, which you want to see. It's a movie about Firestarter. You want to see that. In the new one. Yeah, the graphics are there or whatever, but they quickly go over it. It was a bit of a waste of effects. It was a waste of anyway. So the new one was not nearly as bad as people say it was. Shout out Zac Efron. He's a homie. He's a good actor. Yeah. Although he's like super short apparently. I was watching the movie. I didn't realize he's like
5'7".
He's hella short. I mean, no offense to like guys that are 5'7", like whatever, but like. That's kind of short. I'm like, damn,
you're
you're
short king.
You're like a Hollywood big shot, and you're like hella short. But anyway, that's beside the point. Go see Firestarter. It's okay. The original's better, per usual. What I really want to talk about, what I saw was Brad Pitt. I have been on a Brad Pitt kick lately, and I'm going to continue because I just realized, because I was kind of going through like my arsenal of movies that I've seen a lot. I was like, what haven't I seen? And like I got to Brad Pitt, and I thought I had seen a lot of Brad Pitt movies, and I've seen a fair amount. But then I kind of, because I was like, looked at his page, I was like, wait a minute, like what?
What is this? What is this?
I mean, look, he's been acting in movies since I think the late 80s, definitely in the 90s when he became a big star. And I realized I had not seen much of his original, like his 90s classics.
Yeah.
I'd seen stuff from the 2000s, and like I'd seen Troy, and I'd seen, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and
the like
all
iconic
the big,
ones.
yeah, all the
big
like
ones.
all the big splashy,
Mainstream,
mainstream ones. But I had not seen any of his like his 90s films, and I would argue that he's a heartthrob because of his 90s film. That's where he kind of won America's heart as like this like hunky heartthrob kind of guy. Swoon.
I'll have to watch it because I never really. That's one thing I like understood his like appeal.
I'm the same way because my entire growing up, I was always tainted against Brad Pitt. I was like, screw this guy. He's like some pretty boy. Like screw him. Like, he's not even
that way too.
I always thought he wasn't a good actor. And no. I mean, yeah, he won his Oscar a couple years ago for Once Upon a Time. That was deserved, but frankly, he should have won an Oscar well before that. Like in the 90s, he should have won an Oscar. So let me tell you what I watched. I watched 7 Years in Tibet.
Okay.
Which I believe is 97. And essentially it's him playing this Austrian, just maybe German, maybe Austrian, I forget. But he plays some kind of like European mountain climber. This is right in the thick of World War II.
Okay.
And he goes to Tibet to like climb a mountain. He's kind of doing it on behalf of Nazi Germany at the time. He's not really for the cause. He's like, whatever, I'll do it for you guys. I don't care. I just want to go climb this mountain. He goes, and then World War II breaks out in the middle of his expedition. He gets captured by by British soldiers, and then he's a POW. He escapes.
Oh, wow.
And then he goes and lives with the Tibetan people, and he meets the Dalai Lama. The current Dalai Lama, who's like an old man now, this movie's about him. It's a real story.
Oh wow.
Like this is when the Dalai Lama was a kid at the time. Because like the Dalai Lama, like when this Dalai Lama passes, they're gonna find a new Dalai Lama, like the new spiritual being or whatever, and they pick him young, right?
Yeah.
And in this movie, it's about Brad Pitt immersing himself with the Tibetan people and becoming part of their culture, learning about them, and developing this friendship with the young. It's a kid. It's like an 11, 12-year-old kid who's the Dalai Lama. And kind of striking up this like father-son relationship, and it's just it's a long one of these long epic dramas from the 90s. By the way, those movies don't exist anymore. These like 2-hour plus like long like worldly type dramas, because that's what this is. It's like a worldly drama. It was so moving, so touching. Like I was like. I wasn't like tearing up, but I was like, oh my God.
I was gonna say, did you cry?
No, I didn't.
I would.
No, I did kind of tear up last night actually. So I saw 7 Years in Tibet.
Okay.
And that was on Netflix. I was like, what?
Okay.
It's like, oh my God, like Netflix has some, by the way, I shit on Netflix a lot, and rightly so, but they have like, they're good at categorizing movies now. Like their taxonomy is on point.
Oh, I love all their like little like.
Yeah, they have like 90s classics that you have never seen or whatever. I'm like, oh, okay.
So some of them are like so random, like romantic night in, or like weird stuff like that.
Yes.
And I'm like,
so
it's perfect.
their taxonomy is on point. They have a whole section of 90s movies. That's kind of where I stumbled upon all this stuff. I also watched another Brad Pitt movie, A River Runs Through It, which is also on Netflix. That's a classic Brad Pitt flick of him, and like it's like set in like the 1920s or something, 1920s, 1930s.
That.
Yeah, it's set in Montana. Brad Pitt plays him and this other actor play brothers. They're the son of this like preacher fisherman, and they learn how to do fly fishing. And the movie basically follows each brother's life. And Brad Pitt, he's kind of sticks around. He gets like really into gambling and drinking. And it's another kind of like character study kind of movie.
No, I don't think I've ever seen Brad Pitt in a character study like that.
I'm telling you, go watch these movies. Like they're so good. And Brad Pitt is just fantastic in it. And then the one I saw last night, which is the one that actually kind of like made me. It was one of these it felt kind of like Little House on the Prairie type of thing. It was
so
Legends of the Fall.
It's like 1800s kind of?
Sort of. Like Legends of the Fall takes place in the very late 1800s. It gets into the new century, the 1900s a little bit too, and it goes into Prohibition, etc.
Okay.
But that's the one where you ever seen that famous like Brad Pitt, like him when he's like has the long flowy hair,
yes,
like the very long, like almost like a woman's hair,
and
like he like looks like
my hair,
like your hair essentially, yes, and like he's like super handsome, blah 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 blah, and swoon worthy and all this. Yeah. I'd always seen that cover of Brad Pitt from like Legends of the Fall, and I'd always stayed away from him. Like, ugh, like this is like some mushy bullshit. Like, screw that. Like
Fabio.
Yeah, like Fabio type stuff. Like just overly sentimental, overly dramatic, kind of mushy, maudlin type of stuff, maudlin territory. I'd always stayed away from that movie because it just looked like a movie I wouldn't relate to me.
So it's like, don't judge a movie by its
poster.
No,
do not judge him. And by the way, give Brad Pitt a shot. This guy can act.
Okay.
Go watch Legends of the Fall. It's on, I think it's on Amazon. You might have to it's on Hulu as well.
Like,
to stream it, but it was, that one actually kind of made me tear up because it's so Anthony Hopkins is in that movie. It's
awesome.
So moving. That's another about like brothers, and they're both in love with the same woman, and they both marry her at different points because like she thinks one dies and he comes back, and it's
okay. That's totally my kind of movie.
Go see it. It's so romantic, and like for the longest time I was so averse to like deeply romantic type movies like that because not rom-coms. That's trash.
Romantic drama's different.
Romantic dramas where like you really get into it.
Yeah.
My entire life growing up, I'd always stayed away from those movies. And I was like, it's not for me. It is. Like these movies are good. And I guess I'm just here to say Brad Pitt has been doing his thing forever, and he deserves his flowers. He should have gotten an Oscar years ago. These early 90s movies of his are out there, and I mean they're there to be discovered. Go watch them. I'm gonna keep on watching them. I haven't seen Interview with the Vampire.
I've never seen that either.
I got to watch that one too.
Yeah.
There's others of his that he has. He's done so much. He's got a huge body of work.
I think I've seen some mainstream ones and like Fight Club and
exactly.
And
the big ones.
But I just never. I was like, I don't really see
the appeal. Go watch those like older ones, like those those little hidden gems of his. Because he's been doing his thing for a while, and like he's a really good actor. He's naturally charismatic or whatever. But anyway, shout out Brad Pitt. Go watch Brad Pitt movies. He's a homie. And I think that's a good place to end it. Kind of on a high note. After all this kid killing talk, I'm just. Anyway, thank you guys for hanging out with us. We'll catch you next week. Stream us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, iHeart. We're on the website, and we will check in with you guys next time.
See ya.
Take it easy.